Hello, and welcome to the uber awesome metal vlog, where I try my hardest to educate the unwashed masses on everything metal, who you should be listening to, who's great, who's not, and who you should throw in the trash. Today we're going to be talking about a type of metal that is very near and dear to my heart, a little genre by the name of death metal. One of my favorite death metal bands, called Nile. Now, the best place to start talking about death metal is probably song structure. Drums first, very important. Blast beats often, and depending on the type of death metal, plenty of breakdowns too. We'll go into more detail on those later. Bass is usually just about as technical as the guitar. Unfortunately, a lot of it's mixed really low, so you can't hear it all the time, but there are a lot of really impressive bass players in death metal. Guitars are also a very important aspect of death metal, combining a lot of thematically similar riffs and what's known as sort of a riff salad. These riffs are often chromatic, can be a variety of tempos, and will usually change at breakneck speed to keep the listener on edge. Vocals in death metal are 99.9% of the time harsh. Lots of low screams, sometimes high, sometimes layered. It just kind of depends on the band. Some good starting points are Cannibal Corpse, Eaten Back to Life, Tomb of the Mutilated, Deicide, self-titled, Death, Scream Bloody Gore, Dismember, Like an Ever-Flowing Stream, and Entombed, Left Hand Path. Now, there's a lot of death metal out there, and in metal there's a frequent occurrence of sub-genres, which are a whole nother story, but those are some really great albums to start out with if you've never heard of the genre or would really like to see what it's all about. Now, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite bands, called Nile, from Greenville, South Carolina, starting in 1993, who, as the name implies, are an Egyptian death metal. And what that means is that they draw their influence for all of their music from ancient Egyptian culture. More importantly, what this means is that they do some really cool things with weird intervals that sound very Middle Eastern. For example, on the title track of Annihilation of the Wicked, their lead guitarist plays a double-necked guitar with the second neck being fretless. He uses this fretless neck to do wide interval jumps and long slides to give it sort of an ancient, evil vibe. I think that Nile's been an incredibly influential death metal band because if you ask pretty much any artist who's doing it right these days, they'll say they were kind of an influence. They've been around for a while, they have a really unique sound, if you ask me, and all of the musicians are really, really technically talented. So, some big landmark albums: Annihilation of the Wicked, Black Seeds of Vengeance, In Their Darkened Shrines, and In the Catacombs of Nefren-Ka. Nile's also a very interesting band to me because they play lower than most of any of the other ones I listen to. They like to tune their guitars to drop A. For guitars with Nile, I wouldn't call them a very lead-driven band. They do a lot of riffing in that style we were talking about earlier, sort of the riff salad, and lots of abrupt tempo changes for sure, which is why their drummer George Colias is such a valuable member of the band. He can play so fast, 16th notes on the double bass drum at pretty much any tempo you ask, blast beats all the time, unless, it suits the song better to do it otherwise. And my last, and in my opinion most interesting point about the band, is that while they've been around since 1993 and been very influential in up-and-coming death metal bands, they've also still done a lot more recently. I mean, they released In Their Darkened Shrines in 2002. Annihilation of the Wicked, which is my favorite album, didn't come out until 2005, which is pretty recent when you're starting in 93. Furthermore, they released an album, At the Gate of Setu, in 2012, which is only 2 years ago. And I've heard that they have other recordings in the works as we speak. So, once again, guys, this is the uber awesome metal vlog. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, keep it metal.